The security camera's tiny blue light blinked at me from above the front door, almost as if it were mocking me. I stood frozen on my own porch, still dressed in blood-stained scrubs after a brutal 12-hour shift. Every muscle in my body ached. My feet felt like they were on fire. My lower back was screaming, and all I wanted was a hot shower and my own bed. Instead, I was staring at my mother-in-law's face through the doorbell camera while she calmly informed me that I no longer belonged in my own home. "I mean it, Emma," Patricia said, flashing a smug smile. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against something just out of view. David finally came to his senses. "This house belongs to our family, and frankly, you were never good enough for it, or for him." My name is Emma Chen. At 32 years old, I was living every daughter-in-law's nightmare. The difference was that I'd been expecting this moment for years. Patricia Williams had been trying to destroy my marriage since the day she met me 5 years earlier. At first, her attacks had been subtle. Little comments about my Chinese heritage during family dinners, backhanded compliments disguised as concern. "A doctor? That's impressive," she'd say with a smile. "But when exactly do you plan on having children?" She constantly questioned my priorities, criticized my career, and repeatedly introduced David to the daughters of her wealthy friends as though I didn't exist. But during the past year, something had changed. The passive-aggressive mask had slipped. Patricia had become openly hostile. And judging by tonight's performance, this was the grand finale she'd been planning all along. I adjusted my grip on my work bag and looked directly into the camera. "Where's David?" I asked evenly. "I'd like to hear this from him." Patricia laughed. The sound crackled through the speaker like nails across glass. "He's not here. He's staying with us while he sorts through everything, but he did leave something for you." She held up a sheet of paper. Even from where I stood, it looked like a hastily scribbled note. "Would you like me to read it?" I pulled out my phone. "No, I'll call him myself." "Oh, that's not possible." Her smile widened. "He changed his number, fresh start and all that." The satisfaction dripping from her voice made my stomach turn. "Your belongings are on the porch," she continued. "Take your boxes and leave." "Emma, there's no reason to make this any harder than it has to be." I glanced down. 3 cardboard boxes sat neatly beside the door. They definitely hadn't been there when I'd left for work that morning. One was overflowing with clothes that had clearly been shoved inside without any care whatsoever. Something tightened in my chest. Not sadness. Anger. Pure, cold anger. "Patricia," I said calmly, "I'm going to give you one opportunity to open that door and explain what's actually happening. Because right now you're committing multiple crimes, and I don't think you fully understand how serious that is." She scoffed. "Crimes? Don't be ridiculous. This is my son's house. He has every right to. This is my house." My voice cut through hers like a knife. "My name is on the deed. I bought this property with my money. What you're doing right now qualifies as illegal entry, theft, and harassment, just to start." For the first time, Patricia fell silent. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Finally she spoke. "David told me it was his house." The confidence was gone. In its place was uncertainty. A memory flashed through my mind. The day I bought this home. David had questioned why I wanted the deed solely in my name. I'd smiled and blamed taxes. The truth was much simpler. I'd spent enough time around Patricia to understand exactly how she operated. She controlled people through guilt, manipulation, and money. I wasn't about to give her any legal claim to my future. "Would you like my attorney to explain it?" I asked, already pulling up Jennifer's contact information. "I'm sure she'd be delighted to walk you through the consequences." "You're bluffing," Patricia snapped. But I heard it. Fear. The first crack in her confidence. "David would never let you." "I'm not bluffing." I cut her off again. "And I'm done having this conversation through a camera. You have 30 minutes to leave my house before I call the police. What happens next is entirely up to you." Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked back to my car. The moment I sat behind the wheel, my hands began to shake. Not from fear. From adrenaline. My mind, however, remained perfectly clear. I'd been preparing for something like this since Christmas. That was when I'd overheard Patricia cornering David in the kitchen and telling him he needed to man up and take control of his life. The warning bells had started ringing immediately. After that day, I documented everything. Every manipulative text. Every threatening voicemail. Every surprise visit. Every attempt to undermine my marriage. I called Jennifer, my attorney, my best friend since college. She answered before the second ring finished. "Let me guess," she said. The monster-in-law finally went completely off the rails. She changed my locks and locked me out of my own house. I replied while keeping my eyes fixed on the front door. According to her, David left me and is hiding at their place while he processes everything. Jennifer inhaled sharply. I could hear furious typing in the background. "Have you spoken to David?" "No." I stared at my phone. No calls, no texts, nothing. Apparently he's changed his number. The more I said it out loud, the less believable it sounded. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Jen," I said quietly, "something's wrong." "What do you mean?" "This isn't David. None of this sounds like him." There was a brief pause. Then Jennifer asked the question I already knew was coming. "Do you want me to send the police?" I thought about it. "Not yet. Give me 30 minutes. I want to try one thing first. But stay ready. Always." Her voice softened. "And Emma? Be careful. Desperate people make dangerous decisions." After hanging up, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Mark Williams. David's younger brother. He answered immediately. "Emma? Thank God." My heart sank. "I've been trying to reach David all day." "You can't get a hold of him either?" "No." Mark sounded genuinely worried. "And Mom's acting strange. She told me he was working late, but when I called his office, they said he never showed up." A chill ran down my spine. I quickly explained everything. As I spoke, lights flickered on and off throughout my house. Patricia was moving from room to room. Panicking. Trying to figure out her next move. When I finished, Mark swore under his breath. "Holy hell." His voice was filled with disbelief. "I knew Mom was getting worse, but this? This is insane. Can you come here? I'm already grabbing my keys." He paused. Then added quietly. "Emma. I'm really sorry." 20 minutes later, Mark pulled into the driveway. His expression darkened the moment he saw the boxes piled on my porch. The security camera above the door had gone dark. Patricia had probably disabled it. "I called Dad," Mark said as he walked over. "And?" He gave a bitter laugh. "He's staying out of it." I wasn't surprised. Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking painfully like David. The resemblance made my chest ache. "I should have done something sooner," he said. "I knew she was unstable." "This isn't your fault." I checked my phone again. Still nothing. No messages. No calls. No sign of David. A terrible feeling settled over me. Something was very, very wrong. I slipped my phone into my pocket and looked at Mark. "Do you have your key to your parents' house?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Good." I started the engine. "Because I have a feeling that's exactly where we're going to find David." Mark nodded, absent-mindedly spinning his key ring around one finger. "You really think she's keeping him there?" I looked toward the dark road ahead. Where else would she hide him? We drove separately in case David needed medical attention or transportation. The entire trip to the Williams estate felt endless. Every passing mile seemed to stretch into an hour as my mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Was David okay? Had Patricia finally crossed a line she could never come back from? And most importantly, what had she done to make him cooperate? The Williams mansion stood in eerie silence when we arrived. Every light was off. But two vehicles sat in the driveway. Patricia's Mercedes. And David's Audi. The moment I saw his car, my stomach dropped. He was here. Mark unlocked the front door with his spare key, and we slipped inside. The house was unnaturally quiet. Everything looked perfect. Every piece of furniture sat exactly where Patricia wanted it. Every decorative item was aligned with military precision. Even the family photos seemed arranged according to some invisible set of rules. The entire house felt less like a home and more like a museum dedicated to Patricia's obsession with control. "Check upstairs," I whispered. "I'll take the study." Mark nodded and disappeared toward the staircase. I headed down the hallway toward Robert Williams' study. David had always loved that room. Even as a kid, it had been his refuge. His father read there, worked there, thought there. And unlike every other room in the house, Patricia rarely entered it. When I reached the door, I immediately noticed something. Light glowed beneath it. My pulse quickened. I knocked softly. "Dad?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then a familiar voice answered. Groggy. Confused. Barely awake. "Is that you?" My heart nearly stopped. "David?" I stepped closer. "It's Emma. Open the door." A few seconds passed. Then came shuffling footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. And there he was. My husband looked terrible. His hair was disheveled. His clothes were wrinkled. His eyes struggled to focus. He swayed slightly as he stared at me. "Emma?" His voice sounded distant. Like he wasn't entirely present. "What are you doing here?" Mom said. Before he could finish, he stumbled forward. I caught him before he hit the floor. A surge of panic shot through me. "David," I said sharply, "what did she give you?" He frowned, trying to think. "Just something to help me sleep." His words slurred together. "Said I was stressed, needed rest." My blood turned to ice. I guided him toward the leather couch. "Did she give it to you recently?" He rubbed his forehead. "I don't know, maybe." His confusion was terrifying. Nothing about this was normal. I quickly checked his eyes. His pupils were tiny. Pinpoint. A wave of rage crashed through me. Patricia hadn't convinced him. She hadn't manipulated him into leaving me. She had drugged him. "Mark," I shouted. The urgency in my voice echoed through the room. A moment later Mark appeared in the doorway. The second he saw David, his face went pale. "Holy hell." He rushed forward. "Is he drugged?" "I think so." I looked up at him. "Call an ambulance, right now." The next several hours disappeared into chaos. Paramedics arrived first. Police followed shortly afterward. David was rushed to the hospital. Thankfully not mine. I wasn't sure I could handle treating my own husband while wondering if his mother had poisoned him. Patricia, meanwhile, had vanished. By the time officers searched for her, she was already gone. A review of her credit card activity revealed she'd booked a flight to Florida and fled to her sister's home. Jennifer arrived at the hospital shortly before toxicology results came back. The look on her face told me everything before she even spoke. It was intentional. My chest tightened. What was in his system? Jennifer set the report down. A dangerous combination of prescription sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication. She exhaled heavily. Enough to keep him confused, compliant, and dependent. Not enough to kill him immediately, but definitely enough to impair his judgment. I stared through the observation window at David. 4 days, maybe weeks. He'd been trapped inside a chemical fog created by the person he trusted most. Jennifer's jaw tightened. "We can pursue serious charges for this." "I don't care about charges right now." My eyes never left David. "I just want him safe." Meanwhile, Mark returned to secure the house. Again. The police documented everything Patricia had left behind. And despite her attempts to erase evidence, she'd made one critical mistake. She forgot about the cloud backup. Every second of security footage. Every threat. Every lie. Every smug declaration. Preserved forever. David finally woke close to midnight. The drugs had largely worn off. I was sitting beside his hospital bed when his eyes opened. This time they were clear. Focused. Present. Emma? His voice cracked. He reached for my hand. I grabbed it instantly. What happened? He swallowed hard. The last thing I remember is... His words trailed off. I squeezed his fingers. Your mother. The realization hit him immediately. I watched the color drain from his face. She's been drugging you, David. His eyes widened. No. The toxicology report confirmed it. He stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together fragments of memory. Then suddenly his expression changed. The tea. His voice barely rose above a whisper. The tea she kept bringing me. Tears filled his eyes. She said it would help me relax. More memories surfaced. Painful ones. I remember hearing her talk about you. His breathing grew uneven. About the house. He looked at me helplessly. It felt like I was underwater. I could hear everything, but I couldn't think. His voice broke. I couldn't fight back. The dam finally burst. David collapsed into tears. Years of denial. Years of excuses. Years of believing his mother always meant well. Gone. Destroyed in a single moment. I should have protected you. He covered his face. I'm sorry. The words came again and again. I should have seen what she was doing. I gently pulled his hands away and looked him in the eyes. You have nothing to apologize for. He shook his head. Emma. No. I held his gaze. She abused your trust. She abused you. Tears slid down his face. This isn't your fault. 3 days later, Patricia's escape ended in Tampa. Authorities arrested her at her sister's home just hours before she planned to leave for the Cayman Islands. She never made it. The evidence against her was devastating. The toxicology reports. The security footage. The unlawful entry. The attempted isolation. The years of documented harassment. Then came the final blow. Robert Williams finally broke his silence. After decades of enabling Patricia's behavior, he turned over everything. Hidden recordings. Security footage. Private journals. Evidence documenting years of escalating instability. Among them were recordings of Patricia openly discussing plans to remove Emma from David's life one way or another. There was no defense after that. David testified during the trial. His voice remained calm and steady as he described how his own mother had slowly poisoned him while pretending to care for him. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Patricia was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in prison. As deputies led her away, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. The powerful image she'd spent decades building had finally collapsed. For the first time, everyone saw exactly who she was. A frightened woman obsessed with control. She never once looked at David. Not even as she passed directly in front of him. The healing process took time. David spent months in therapy. Unraveling years of manipulation wasn't easy. Understanding how deeply his mother's control had shaped his life was even harder. But little by little, he healed. And I stayed beside him through every step. Eventually we sold the house. Too many memories. Too much pain. Instead, we bought a small farm outside the city. A place filled with quiet mornings, open skies, and peace. Mark and his wife visited often. So did Robert, who was slowly learning how to be a father without Patricia dictating every aspect of his life. One evening, nearly a year later, David and I sat together on our porch watching the sunset paint the horizon in shades of gold and violet. After a long silence, he turned toward me. You knew. His voice was soft. I looked at him. Knew what? That she was capable of this. He smiled sadly. That's why you kept the house in your name, why you documented everything. I squeezed his hand. I hoped I was wrong. The sunset reflected in his eyes. But I needed to be prepared. He lifted my hand and kissed my fingers. A small gesture. But one that meant everything. Thank you. I smiled. For what? His voice grew quiet. For fighting for us when I couldn't. We sat there together as darkness slowly settled across the fields. The future stretched endlessly ahead. Peaceful. Hopeful. Free. Patricia had spent years trying to break us apart. Instead, she had shown us how strong we truly were. Because real love isn't about control. It isn't about possession. It isn't about fear. Real love stands beside you when everything falls apart. It protects. It sacrifices. It sets you free. And in the end, that kind of love was stronger than anything Patricia ever understood. Stronger than manipulation. Stronger than fear. Stronger than hate. Strong enough to survive. Strong enough to win.